So this is the guy that we're going to be working with. If I jump into the import here, we have our robot coming in, and I'm just assigning a bunch of different materials here. These are just straight up materials. There's no textures or anything. And then I'm using an object merge to bring it into another geo object, right? So I don't really want to, I'm just going to have this assign the textures, and then this is going to be where our rig exists. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to spread this out into 4 different sections. So we're going to do the head, the waist, the spine, and the arms. And we're going to do them separately, and then we're going to merge them all together. So we're going to do a couple of house cleaning things to our model to make it easier to select some of the objects. So here, let me open up my geometry spreadsheet here. So we're going to leave this open because this is going to be pretty essential when we're working on this. We want to be able to see our attributes and all that fun stuff. So first things first, I want to group everything. So if I go into, if I go to my primitives here, you can see that everything has a name. But I don't necessarily want to select by name. Of course, you could do that, right? So now I go here. So if I type in name up there, now I can select everything by name. But I'm going to do it by groups instead because it's just a little less syntax and a little bit easier to select everything if they're all grouped. So I'm going to put down a group from name SOP. So now we should have a whole bunch of groups in here. So 40 prim groups. Fantastic. Let's get out of this. Okay, so now that we've created groups from all of our objects, let's delete some of this stuff in here. I'm going to delete this shop material path. So I'm going to put down an attribute delete, and I'm going to delete the path attribute. So it's just cleaning things up a little bit. All right, so now we can actually move on to start separating everything. So I'm going to start with the head. So quickly, I'm going to move this over here. I'm just going to create a quick null and throw it over there. So I'm going to create nulls here just to make the process a little bit easier. So I'm going to create 4 different nulls. And then from these nulls, this is where we're going to grab our objects. So on the head, I'm going to hit S. I'm going to throw down a split first. And let's grab this guy. All right. So I want to get everything that's going to be part of the head joint. Okay, just enter. All right, so now our head is separated. It's called head. So we have our head over here. This will be our waist. So we'll just do the same process again. We'll throw down a split, click the arrow, and then grab everything that we need. Hit enter. So now we have everything on our waist. This will be called waist. Next, we'll do our arms. You can also do it this way. You can grab all the groups and then over the viewport, just throw down a split. Oops, I missed a piece. So let's try that again. Got to make sure to get that little ball joint in there. Split, there we go. And then right here, we're gonna throw down we're just gonna grab just this accordion spine here. And then throw down one more split. Okay, great. So we have everything split apart. Let's put down our labels here. Going to try to keep everything very organized. All right, so we're going to start on the spine because the spine is going to serve as the root of this whole model. And the head and the waist are going to be connected to the actual spine joints. And in order to get the head joint and the waist joint, we're going to need our spine. So we're going to go in and rig up the spine. And then from there, we'll move on to everything else. So starting with the spine, I'm going to want to get a line that goes up just up the center. And I want it to be the exact same height as the spine. So if I jump into my front viewport here, there's a quick way that we can do this. Instead of setting up a line and manually placing it, we could do this. I'm going to throw down a bound, put down a line. Now within our line, we're going to take our length, copy the parameter, put it into the origin, divided by 2, multiply by -1. So now it always sits right in the center of the origin, right? So if I extend it, it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so let's put the length up to about 10, something crazy. Okay, so with our bound, we're going to extract this centroid. We're going to get rid of this name attribute. So now we have our point right there, right? I'm going to copy this line to this point. So it sits right in the center of this bound object. Now I'm going to do an intersection analysis, grab our bound object, and now we have these 2 points. Perfect. But sometimes with the intersection analysis, it comes out with some extra points. So I'm just going to throw down a fuse, and that quickly solves that problem. So I want these to be reversed because I want our hierarchy to go from the bottom to the top. So we're going to throw down a sort and then just reverse the point sort. And now we have that. I'm going to put down an add. I'm going to go by group. So now these are connected. And then I'm going to throw down a resample and give this a maximum segments of, I'm going to give this maximum segments of, segments of 3. So we have 4 points in total. Great. So now we have our spine line, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this into a subnet because I'm going to use this again later. So I'm going to say get center line. That's a pretty useful tool. Okay, so then we have our resample. So now we need to name these guys. So I'm going to put down an attribute wrangle. And we're going to say name is equal to spine underscore, oops, if I can get that underscore in there, plus itoa point num. And this will give us the numbers of our points and turn that into a string, this little itoa point num thing here. So now we have spine 0, spine 1, spine 2, spine 3. Perfect. And they're going up. So the root is going to be at the 0 there. So now we're going to throw down a rig doctor. And once we initialize these transforms, now we have workable joints. So if I put down a rig pose, we now have joints that we can use for our skeleton. And they're all named and they're ready to go. So if I go back up here, here's my geometry. Now it's not enough to just throw down a joint capture by harmonic and then just try to skin this properly, right? It's not really going to work. And if I were to look at these joints, they're really far away from the actual geometry. There's a lot of space separating them. I need geometry, extra geometry, that'll serve as a reference for each point of our skeleton. So let's go back up here to our geometry, and I'm gonna select edge loops that will serve as our guide geometry for our skinning. So one thing I want to do is I want to see these joints when I'm over here so I know which edges to select. So I'm just going to make a quick sphere, do a copy 2 points, that there, make the sphere smaller, and hit E. So this will template. And now I know exactly where the lines need to be. So let's go into here, and I'm going to select these edge rings or edge loops. Okay. And I'm going to say, let's see, labs edge group to curve. All right. So now we have all these edges, but let's look at the primitive number of these. So we have 0, 2, 3, 1. So these aren't matching the hierarchy that I set up for my skeleton. So I'm going to put down a sort. I'm going to go to primitive sort, and I'm going to go by Y. So now we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So then I have this, and I have my primitives here numbered correctly. I'm going to grab this attribute wrangle and just drag it over, right? We're going to call this prim name, because now we're going to name these primitives. So we're going to name them the exact same thing. We're going to go by primitives. We're going to run over the primitives, and we actually have to change this to primnum. There we go. So now we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So now these names of our rings are matching the names of our spine joints. So now I'm going to pack these, because in order for this to work, this needs to be packed geometry. And we're going to use the name attribute to pack them. So we have 4 different pieces, and then we're going to transfer the name attribute. So now we have our names again. So now we're going to put down and attach capture geo. And the first slot is going to be our skeleton. So why don't we put down a null here? I'm going to say skeleton, just so we can organize a little bit and know where everything is. I'm going to put that into the first slot, and then this is going to go into the second slot. So we're going to assign 4 different shapes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to start from the bottom and go to the top. Okay, so spine 0, spine 1, spine 1, spine 2, spine 2, spine 3 to spine 3. Okay, so they're all on there, but they have this offset here. So if you just click on the keep shape world transform, they all snap back to place. Okay, great. So our lines are set up. We can get rid of this over here. We don't need that anymore. That was our reference object. So the next thing I'm going to do here is, instead of going in and directly skinning this guy, I'm going to use a reference geometry that'll make it just a little, because this piece is kind of complicated. So I'm going to use a reference piece of geometry, and we're going to use that to do our skinning and then transfer the skin weights over. So I want to use this same line here, right? So let's template our guy here. And with this line selected, I'm going to drag it out, and I'm going to resample it again. And let's go to maximum segments and put this up to about 20, because I want this to be fairly high resolution. I'm going to put down a sweep, go to round tube, turn up the columns. So it's a fairly high resolution piece of geometry. And then we want to scale this up so that it matches our main piece here. All right, let's put this down just a little bit, and let's put up the amount of columns to about 40. Okay, I'm going to scale my ramp up, and I'm going to turn this into a Bezier curve. So with this point selected on the left here, I'm going to put that out like that, and now we have our shape. And one last thing, in order to get this to work, we have to make sure that we have our end caps on. So this is a solid piece of geometry. So I'm going to put down a joint capture biharmonic. So this is going to go into the first slot, second slot into there. And now we have our joint capture. Now you're going to see what the issue is here in just a moment. So if I put down a bone, let's put down a bone to form. Let's put down a bone to form so that we can troubleshoot this. So this is going to be our rest geometry. Let's do a rig pose, drag that out, slot that into here, and then that goes there. So we're going to remove that. This is going to go into our second slot, and then our skeleton is going to go into the third slot. Okay, now let's see if that helped at all. A little bit. So there's definitely an improvement here. Still not perfect. For instance, we're not really capturing the top, and the bottom ring isn't being captured at all. Okay, this is fine. We can fix this. So within our sweep, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 separate groups. I'm going to select the top ring, group that, call that top ring. Do the same with the bottom ring, group this, bottom ring. So from here, we're going to put down a joint capture paint. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so everything is in there. And now we're going to select let's start with the top ring here. And we're going to go to this target joint. We're going to select spine 3, because that's that top joint. We're going to go to operation fill, and then just click. So now all the red means that that is 100% filled. Okay, so let's put down another one to get the bottom line. Joint capture paint, go away. We're going to grab the bottom ring. We're going to do spine 0 to the operation to fill, and just click. Let me see, enter, click. There we go. So now it's working. So we have the top and the bottom. And now let's plug this into here. And now this is looking much better, sort of. Still looks kind of funky. But now our bottom and our top joints are staying in place, which is great. So from here, all we need to do is just smooth these out. Okay? So let's open up the bone to form. And within the smooth, we are going to grab the bone capture attribute. And if I put up the strength and just drop the filter quality, we now have this. So one thing that's happening here when we smooth is that we're losing that point in there. Like you see how these are kind of going, they're all going towards the center. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we don't smooth these, right? We don't want to smooth those. So we're going to have to constrain these two groups. So in order to properly constrain these two groups, we have these edge ring groups, right? The top and the bottom. So what we need to do is promote those two groups to points. So we're going to grab the bottom ring and the top ring and promote them to points. And then within our smooth, we are going to put the bottom ring and the top ring into our constrained points so that now when we smooth, these no longer move. And if I put down the filter quality, boom, we have really nice deformation now. And these are staying where they need to stay. Fantastic. All right, so the last step here, so this is all of our work going on over here to get everything that we need. So the last step here is to go all the way back up to our original geometry, throw down an attribute transfer, and we're going to transfer the bone capture attribute. So now, if I put this into here, that's moving as it should. So we get a little bit more, we have this kind of a little bit more issue there. So if we put down another smooth, and we're going to throw down, or we're going to grab our, let me see, let's grab the bone capture. All right, there we go. So that gets rid of all those little issues in there. So we just kind of smooth that up a little bit, and there we go. So now our spine is ready to go. And if I go up here and move that around, everything looks great. All right, so this is going to be sort of our debug bone deform right here. So we're not going to use this. What we're actually going to use is this skin geometry, right? This is the geometry that we want. So I'm going to call this spine skinned. Okay, and then we want our skeleton as well. So I'm going to drag this all the way down. I'm going to call this spine, uppercase, spine skeleton. All right, I make it black. Yeah, this is kind of like, this is a way that I organize things typically is I make my outputs black and round, and then the inputs are usually blue and round. So, you know, when I'm navigating my space, I know where my outputs are and where my inputs are if I'm using object merges. Okay, great. So our spine is done and is ready to go. It's not rigged yet, right? We haven't implemented our apex rig, but all the skinning and the joint creation is finished. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just put this into, let's take the whole stream and just put it into a box just to keep things organized. So what we're going to do from here is that in the end, right, when everything is done, we're going to be merging them at the bottom here. So why don't we just begin doing that? So let's put down a merge, and this is going to be our final geometry. Let's zoom in here. Final skinned geo, and this is going to be, let's do one, final skeleton. Okay, so now we have these, and let's just put down a null on each of these in case I need to make a different connection. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both of these into our pack folder to get ready for Apex. And our first input is our base shape, and the second is going to be the base scale. Okay, so this is just about ready to go. So let's do this. We'll call this shape, and this is going to be, let's call this geo, right? So we don't have S's all over the place. And this is going to be skeleton. So everything is going to be merged in the end down here. All right, great. So next we'll jump over to the head, and after that, the waist, and then the arms. And then once we've finished all of our skinning and skeleton creation, then we'll move on to actually going into Apex and rigging everything up.